Can I start, Colton?
Almost. Okay,
Oh,
you're good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rebecca Sander and serve as chair of the Practice Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask the members of the Practice Committee to respond to a roll call to show their presence at this open meeting being held remotely by Zoom and YouTube. Andrea Watson.
Present.
Audrey Goldsmith.
Present.
Gwendolyn Lloyd.
Here.
Jeannie Gertzenkorn.
Here.
Christina Blanton. She will be absent today with notification. Julie Brown. Sharon Morris.
Present.
I also ask board staff members to signify their attendance. Linda Davies, practice specialist.
Present.
Victoria Bond, administrative specialist.
Present.
Public comment allows individuals to address the practice committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Open Meeting Act, which is known as KOMA, does not require the committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. Public comment will not be taken today because there is the possibility that the connection for this remote meeting may be lost over time, and the time for the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Additionally, we will not know what comments an individual may make, and we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. On August the 28th, 2021, the board sent notice of the meeting for the practice committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. You may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to Kara Moreland at kansas.gov with the subject line request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. The notice contains the internet links to access the meeting by Zoom and YouTube. The notice also contains the Zoom telephone number to attend this meeting by telephone call. Each of these electronic mediums allow the public to attend this meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they experience any technical issues during the meeting. The only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting are the connections by Zoom and YouTube as previously stated. Each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are on mute when the participant is not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. A statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the committee. The meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on its agenda: call to order, review of on-site packets, additions or revisions to agenda, announcements, approval of minutes for the meeting held in June 2021, unfinished business, new business, agenda for committee meetings December 2021, adjournment. Although the agenda does not include an executive session, if the committee elects to exercise the option to go into executive session, the committee will follow this process. First, the committee must be in an open session before going into an executive session. Then a motion will be made and seconded. Pursuant to KSA 75-4319B, the motion must contain the statement of justification for closure, the subject to be discussed, and the time and place that the open meeting will resume. If a motion for executive session passes, public will be excluded from this portion of the meeting, as the executive session will be conducted by electronic means that will not be made available to the public. The committee members will return to the open meeting after the executive session. The open meeting will resume when the committee members return to the Zoom and YouTube meeting after the executive session. The complete The complete motion for an executive session will be recorded in the minutes. The meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next item on the agenda. The review of packet. Are there any things in the review of packet, on-site packet?
Madam Chair, there is no on-site packet for this committee.
Thank you. Are there any additions or revisions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Announcements. I do have an announcement to make. I would like to acknowledge that Christina Blanton and Julie Brown are ending their term for this committee, and in appreciation of their great service and contribution to this committee, we would like to present them with certificates. And Colton's going to show them to you for both Christina and Julie. And since neither one of them are here today, we're still going to honor them and acknowledge them, and these will be mailed to them later. So we do appreciate all their time and work on this committee, and we will miss them. Are there any other announcements?
Madam Chair, it's Linda Davies, practice specialist. I'm just going to announce that Megan Hughes is shadowing Victoria Bond today.
Oh, great. Very good. Is she going to meet everybody today on Zoom, or is she going to be shy and not show her face? She's not going to wave?
Yeah.
Oh, good. And she waved. Good. Was Colton able to show the certificates that are going to go to Christina and Julie?
Yes, he was.
Oh, good. Very good. This is my first time doing phone only and not Zoom. It's very strange because I was on a Zoom meeting at 12:30 and it was a piece of cake. It was successfully working, and then I sit down to my computer and nothing. And I do have internet connection, so that's not the problem. So I do apologize for starting the meeting late. Okay, let's move on to approval of minutes from June the 15th of 2021. Everybody had time to look through them. Are there any additions or corrections to the minute? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion, Victoria, for approval of minutes?
Yes. Is there a member of the committee who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the June 15th, 2021 minutes as written.
This is
Anybody
Gwen
else?
Lloyd.
Oops, go ahead, Gwen.
This is Gwen Lloyd, and I move to approve the agenda, meeting minutes as written.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, the motion is carried. Okay, we'll move on to unfinished business, the 5-year legislative review. And I do believe Carol is going to be speaking a little bit now.
This is Carol Moreland from agency staff. If it would be okay with the board, I would like to table 60-3-102 and 60-7-102 until December. A little bit more I need to find out on these two. And I apologize,
Okay.
I don't have it. I've been kind of busy with budget and everything else.
Okay. Is there any comments or discussion about that from anybody on the committee? Carol, just out of curiosity, what sources are you having to review or pursue or ask or whatever to see about any issues we have with these?
Well,
About
the deal with
alike.
those two things, and I think I may have explained this before, and it's just because I haven't had time to talk to our legal counsel about it. There's been other
Okay.
things going on with that, but both of those regulations refer to the fees in statutes. And so I'm not sure, you guys wanted to revoke those regulations. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure what happens if we revoke those regulations, but the fees stay in the statutes. So I just needed to talk to legal counsel about it, and it just hasn't, I apologize, it hasn't made it to the top of the priority list. There were a few other things on our agenda here.
No problem. I just need to refresh my memory because there's no pressing issue with these two, and I just kind of sort of forgot
Right.
what the problem was with revoking.
Yeah, they talk about duplicate license, which we don't issue. We don't send out license cards or anything anymore. So you all wanted to revoke those two. And I certainly understand that. I just don't know when we still have a fee in statute, if we can revoke the regulation before the statute's changed. And I didn't know the answer to that. And like I said, it hasn't quite made it to the priority list yet. I apologize.
Well, I can't wait to get the answer to that one whenever you find that out. It'll be interesting to see. I would like to know myself. That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up about that fee. Very good. So we'll move that on to the December meeting, no problem. Then we move on to the change of name for the licensed mental health tech.
Yes. This is Carol again. Let me catch up with you here. Sorry. This is actually on page 8 in your packet. And what you directed me to do was this has to do with the LMHT. You directed me to change and make it mirror the one for nurses. And so that's what I did, other than the statute for LMHTs and stuff like that. But you wanted it to say that they have to submit the document to the board within 30 days of the change. That was not in the LMHT one. So that's what you have on page 8. I believe that's what you wanted done with it. If not, just refresh my memory.
That's correct. I noticed that it doesn't have a time frame. The one that we looked at initially, it doesn't have a time frame. So that's what I remember. And you have done that. Is there any discussion from any committee members? Because other than that, I think it looks fine, actually.
Okay, this is Carol, and you would just need to approve that proposed change if that's what you want to do, and to take it to the board before it starts through the process.
Okay.
We just need a motion to approve. I move that we approve requirement 60-7-103 to reflect the changes as submitted. This is Sharon Morris.
Thank you, Sharon. Do I hear a second?
Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thank you, Adri. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carried. Okay. Next, we have new business, and that would be practice calls and resources.
Madam Chair, this is Linda Davies, practice specialist. I always try to give an update as to type of call we continue to see and the questions that we get via email as well. This quarter, it's been APRNs and telehealth. The NCSBN did an article review of 50 states, and if anybody is wanting me to send that out to them, I can certainly forward that to you, or I can even put it in the December packet for you to review. Other calls that we've received are practice and COVID, obviously, school nursing, the threat and the fear of losing the license if they would do something that they're unsure of their scope of practice, And another thing that came out this quarter was that the Federation of State Medical Boards put statements regarding the spread of misinformation by a physician, and the joint statement by the American Board of Family Medicine, Board of Internal Medicine, and Board of Pediatrics on that, basically stating that providing misinformation contradicts the ethical and professional responsibilities and may subject a physician to disciplinary action. I mentioned this because KSBN does receive complaints of how nurses are doing something similar. So we don't have any type of statement that I found from the ANA or certainly from KSBN, we don't do position statements. So, but I'm just making you aware that that is what I've found that just came out in July 29th from the FSMB, and then the joint statement from those three came out on September 9th. We do have like complaining parties complete a complaint form if they do make mention to us that a nurse is making statements that they believe is contradictory or a violation of the Nurse Practice Act. So we have them submit a complaint to a proper investigation to see if their conduct is likely to deceive, defraud, or harm the public. And then we present those obviously to the investigative committee for decision. The other piece that I usually mention about here is addressing practice calls and concerns the resources that we use to address those. Currently, we have a Nurse Practice Act that we refer back to when we are presented with a question. But, I'm interested in from, the committee's experience, what other resources, might we consider? Example, we've had school nurse related questions, which prompted us to send one of our investigators to the school nurse conference. And we have benefited from going there and also making those relationships, establishing those relationships with school nurses. I have membership to the ANA also, which provides some resources and information, but I would appreciate from the committee, if you know of any other resources that we should look at for scope of practice and standards of care, please route those to me so that we can address certain questions timely and accurately. Some other ideas I have regarding practice and resources is, I could do a survey of other state boards of nursing as to how they address practice type questions. If you would like to direct me to do that, I can do that and then bring that survey results back to you in December. Or even compile and bring practice related complaints that come through the investigative committee that could lead to maybe educational opportunities, resource suggestions from the committee. If you want me to do that as well, I'm certainly willing and able to do that too. The next piece is on the scope of nursing practice decision-making framework that you'll see that's in your packet. On page 9, it is an algorithm in figure 1 that allows for a standardized decision-making process for the nurse. We could make this available to nurses, employers, on the website, newsletter, maybe targeted dissemination to risk managers and schools of nursing to assist them in helping nurses determine their actions are actually being done within their scope of practice. That came out in 2016 and we became aware of it. And so we're making the committee aware of this as well. Additionally, I found that one of the state boards of nursing has created an Lpnrn scope of practice comparison chart. And I can draft a similar type chart referencing Kansas Nurse Practice Act and bring it back for the December committee review as well, to see if you would like to do something of that nature. So I'm looking for resources, as you can see. So any assistance is greatly appreciated.
You've got a lot of good ideas, Linda. First of all, that idea about sending an investigator to a school nurse conference, that was a great idea for, helpful referencing. That is great. And I like this decision tree. There's a piece of in here that I saw about the education, has completed the necessary education to safely perform the activity, intervention, or role, because I can speak from the investigation side. If we get a case where we have to review a potential intervention by a nurse practicing outside the scope, that's one of the, sometimes, that's one of the pieces of criteria that we want to know is if they were educated, can prove education. So I think that tree is really good as a resource. But all those other bullets on that decision tree, I think would be helpful if somebody's struggling in a facility trying to decide if there's somebody has went over their scope of practice or it answers a practice question.
This is Adri Goldsmith. I hear a lot on the LPN side where they're not sure if it is an LPN scope, and what their feedback they get from employers is, we've got other LPNs doing it. That would be a valuable resource for all LPNs out there, because whether your facility is having them do it or not, it might not be okay to do.
I know that in school nursing, many times nurses end up as the only medical practitioner in a non-traditional setting, in a non-medical setting. And sometimes there is a misunderstanding in the hierarchy of, well, especially along the lines of delegation and what can be delegated. And nurses, for the most part, have a fairly clear understanding, but sometimes, the supervisor of the nurse feels that they can order delegation. Those of us that practice within a setting, and we have a whole department that is in support of that, and we've been doing this for many years, we can clearly stake out that statement that even I do not tell another nurse what she can delegate or not, because it's her clinical judgment. If it's her delegation, she has to identify what's appropriate and when to delegate. And so that sometimes has to be clarified to non-medical people, that just because they're an authority over the nurse doesn't mean they're an authority over her practice.
That was well stated. Good point. That was interesting. Wow. Well, Linda, you've generated a lot of issues and discussions and some great ideas. How much time would it take on your part to contact other state boards of nursing in the United States to see how they're dealing with all these practice questions that seem to be cropping up now more today than have been in the past?
I could do I could do a survey one day, and I usually allow a survey to stay open for 2 weeks, and then tabulate those results and bring back. So it wouldn't take long. If anybody did comment and want to provide, documents or other cheat sheets, I'm not opposed to stealing shamelessly from another state board of nursing who has it already put together, so that then we can review that and see, what we would like to adopt for the practice committee going forward. So.
And if you could bring that comparison chart, the LPN scope and the RN scope that are back, they're side by side. I know I've seen that document back to the board in December. That would be a nice little helpful thing too. We can get a little pool of resources to look at in December too, and maybe come up with some really good thoughts and ideas.
Yep, I most certainly can do that.
Yeah, to help you out on your end.
Thank you.
I bet you do get some tough questions on a daily basis, though, about, can I do this? I bet you do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
But anybody else have any more thoughts about practice calls? Thoughts or ideas? Well, I'd say this is a good start. I'm glad you brought this up. I didn't realize, well, I guess I kind of thought maybe you were getting more and more hard to answer questions, but I didn't realize there's no place to go other than the one statute that is not worded specifically and does not answer black and white questions on a specific skill. And then one more question I thought of too. You mentioned about sharing this in the newsletter. I know it's fairly new, but since the newsletter's gone out electronically, is there a way that you can get a feel of if people are reading it more online than they did, I mean, can you tell how many readers are reading more online, the online version than the mail version, paper version?
This is Linda Davies again, practice specialist. I believe that Adrian has indicated that there's a way for the company to be able to monitor the number of clicks on a certain newsletter topic. So that might show us as far as like how many, may have read that article. So that's a possibility. If Adrian going to comment further.
Yes, that'd be a great way to do that. I can ask the company if they can drill down and get a selection. Would it be for a certain time frame or just in general?
Because well, I'm glad you're on, Adrian, because as old as I am, and we just, that paper newsletter's been going out in the mail for all these years. But since it went electronically, I have actually heard nurses talk about reading it. And that's the first time in all these years, I've heard feedback from an article or something, that they saw in the newsletter. And I was just so excited to hear that I think they're reading it now. So I was just kind of wondering if there's any way to validate, or was that just a fluke thing that I was in a group of nurses that for some reason read the latest newsletter?
Well, that's wonderful to hear that feedback. Yes, we could bring that back to either the practice committee or the full board, whichever prefer.
This would be a great way, because if word's going out and we're applying maybe some algorithms or resources on the newsletter, because even employers would want some help, instead of calling up Linda all the time, maybe if they could just do, go to the newsletter or something and get some help. This would be really cool if they're really reading it much better than they did with the paper version.
Yeah, we'd be happy to try it. Check it out.
I would, yes. Very good. Well, we're off for a good start, Linda. I think that's great. I love the ideas that's been shared today. If anybody has any more that you can think of as we've been talking. Well, okay, thank you for sharing, Linda. That was very interesting. Your practice call topics are interesting, actually. What kind of topics you're getting from where. Okay, is there anything else that anybody needs to share? So the next on the agenda is the agenda for the December committee meeting. And we're already carrying over KAR 60-7-102 and 60-3-102. And then maybe Linda's going to bring forward some results from some of her surveys. Is there anything else we need to put on the agenda for December? Okay. Well, hearing none, and I can't think of any more either, I guess the meeting will be adjourned for today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and sorry for the delay on the start. Hopefully that will never happen again. Thank you.